everyone. Welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and my guest today is a friend of mine named Kyle Shaughnessy. Hey, Kyle. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. Thank you so much for being here. Kyle has been walking a very similar journey to me, and by journey, I'm talking about kind of our journey back to ourselves, our ascension journey, our soul journey, our spiritual journey, whatever you want to call it. And I know this conversation is going to have so many good nuggets and great information is going to unfold as we chit chat. So thanks for joining us today, everyone. And Kyle, welcome to the show.
Super stoked to be here and talking to you. So this is awesome.
Thanks for saying yes and making time in your life.
Yeah.
First off, I wanted to ask you if you have always, as a kid or in your younger childhood life, been one of those people that was very connected and kind of intuitive, or if all of that stuff kind of came online later for you?
Well, for me, it was like growing up. I wouldn't say it was so much as like the intuitiveness, but it was more just like I always just felt connected to loving people, no matter what was going on in my life. Like I just always wanted to be with people and connect with people and just help people as best as I could.
So you had a really open heart.
Yeah, open heart my whole life. And then, but the way the world has been is like, most people aren't like that. So it's like, it was a little confusing for me, growing up, and led me down a path because I didn't know how to deal with the fact that not everybody had an open heart and was loving.
Yeah. Did you feel different than
in a sense? Yeah, like looking back in hindsight, I definitely felt like I could see things a little differently than everybody. Like I just would always wonder why people weren't so loving. That was honestly my biggest thing growing up.
Yeah, it's so interesting to be walking through the world with that heart, and then everything in society and our cultures kind of encourage people to shut down and armor up. So I could see how that could have been such a difficult place to navigate, because you're just showing up with an open heart, and people were maybe responding to you from their wounds instead of from a place of love. And you're like, what's this about?
Yeah.
As a kid, right? Nobody's really explaining anything to us. We're kind of just feeling our way through when we're little kids.
Yeah. And it's like growing up too, like not knowing how to deal with it, like I didn't know how to deal with all of the emotions because we don't really get taught that anymore either. So I did kind of have to shut them down and try to numb that out,
Yeah.
So, which led me down a darker road towards like the addiction side, like to just shut my emotions down because I didn't know how to deal with anything.
Yeah. There's so many people, I think a lot of indigo in particular, that's kind of the generation of my kids and their indigos, struggle with that.
Yeah.
Because they are, first of all, they feel different. They feel like they don't belong here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they as much as they have like these beautiful souls and spirit and heart and talent, they don't fit in the box. He wants them to fit in. So.
It's the only way to really explain it, though, because it's like we came here at this time and space, and the world wasn't fully ready for what we came here for.
Yes.
Like we weren't ready to just be in that environment.
Right.
So it's like shut us down. It's like, what's going on? Why isn't things ready for us yet?
Right. Vibrationally ready for the change that your generation is here to bring to the world, which is a new vibration. It's a vibration of more love, more compassion. I find in interacting with people, my kids' age or your generation, that there is such a difference between our generations, because in my generation, we were like the conformity generation. You did what you were told, you did what was expected, you went to college, you got a job with benefits, you stayed
Yep.
there for years, and then you retired. End of
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Enjoy what life you had left.
Right, right. It was a very unconscious kind of program. And
Yep.
you guys came in to really break that program and really came in with a desire, I think, to create change, have impact, shake up the system, and maybe help to alchemize and shift the paradigms that weren't working anymore. So your
Yep.
generation is about creating impact and wanting to be in service and change and save the earth and all of that, right?
I feel like it's all about also bridging the gap between those paradigms, like coming in to help assist in that shift to just kind of everybody like understands more that they weren't working versus just demolishing them.
Yeah. So you guys are the bridge, you think?
I think in that like aspect of it, yeah, right in between, because we got the
Yeah.
next generation coming too.
Right.
So
Right. I think every generation that comes in now is coming in at a higher and higher vibration. Like I think we all come in pure as pure light when we're born, of course, as souls. But it seems like the kids coming in today, like some of them have never even been in human form before.
yeah,
Like it's like they're
yeah,
coming from way out there to come in and
yeah,
anchor just light.
yeah, yeah. I know. It's like, um, yeah, because you see some of these kids coming in now after me that are just so pure in the
Yeah.
gifts that they have, and it's just like unbelievable to really witness what they're doing with them already at like
At
such
such a young age,
yeah,
like 4, 5.
prodigies, just coming in with
Totally.
whatever the talents are.
Yeah, I think it's really going to change how we interact as a species, how we live and learn and love, all of it. I think so many paradigms are going to change, and we're kind of on the cusp of that
Yep.
right now. Like last year when we had the pandemic, which is obviously still going on, um, doesn't it seem like that was kind of a wake-up call or opportunity for some people?
Yeah, yeah. It feels like because I witnessed a lot of it too among like friend groups. I've seen which way they decided to go during that, like they could either fall down deeper into whatever was going on with them, or people were embracing it and like really realizing how to transcend to that next level, like get rid of what no longer serves them. And it was like some of the people I've seen, it would just bring a tear to my eye watching them like really like get it. It's
Yeah.
been beautiful to watch all of last year.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see the unfolding. And I think even though people aren't consciously choosing one direction or another,
Yeah,
like awakening or remaining asleep, um, it there's something pushing them, which I feel is like their higher self is kind of
yeah,
pushing them, right, to
yeah,
wake up and to nudging them to really start to let go of the things that no longer serve. I think that was probably one of the biggest tools that um, we've both learned on
yeah.
this journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the things like I learned when I was really starting to come out of the darkness when I was a little younger, like going on the internal journey, working on relationships and just kind of like figuring out all the struggles I've had and like really tuning into the internal world was we have to embrace all those feelings, like whether we view them as good or bad. And that's the only way we can do that because you embrace with love. But if you're going to go down the other route, it's usually because you're resisting those fears. And well, you resist with fear. You can't really embrace and let go and transmute when you're in that vibration of fear. So,
Which is a lower vibration.
yeah,
So
yeah,
when you're in that fear vibration, it's very, very difficult to break out of that paradigm because it's so dense, it's so heavy, it's easy.
collectively the world, it's like that's where they are.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So tell me what a pivotal point was in your journey? Obviously, you came in with this beautiful open heart, and then without any kind of guidance, and most people don't have guidance, it's so difficult to navigate life, right?
Yeah.
Because you kind of enter the teen years and everyone's trying to fit in and conform, and maybe it's just easier not to feel.
Yeah.
Kind of go down that road of numbing a little bit and stuff like that. So what was kind of the turning point for you where you kind of said, okay, this really isn't working for me, and I want to
Well, I
do
had
something different?
care of linear experience, numbing, it wasn't just like I had to really learn my lessons the hard way with the whole numbing experience, but I found a place, it was the counseling place that I kind of went to, that I would go to them for the unbiased, loving advice that I already knew I needed. And I would go there and tell them the advice I needed. They'd be like, you already know. But I'd be like, no, but I just want you to tell me, because I still had that human need for like,
You
can you
want the
help?
confirmation, like
Yeah.
from someone outside of yourself.
Yeah, because it's like, do I trust myself enough to listen to my own guidance? It was what it was. I didn't trust.
That's a huge, huge one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I did not.
Listening to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'd always be funny too, because every time I'd go there when I was really struggling, and they just look at me like, what? You just told us what you need to do. And I'd be like, fine, okay. And once I really got into that though, was when, they started guiding me towards that path of like, don't numb anymore, like you can't numb it. You have to way right through it, and you have to love yourself through it,
to feel it and
Yep.
love yourself through it. That's for sure. That's for sure. I think one of the toughest things is, we're a product of our family history, right?
Yep.
Our family dynamics and parenting, how we're raised. We're a product of it, and it all serves us. Like, people really kind of resist whatever in their childhood was shaping them, but all of it served us and brought us to this place of awareness, right?
Yeah.
And I've really found that I was like you. I had a very big open heart, and I had a lot of feelings. I was very sensitive and compassionate to others, but I was never taught how to nurture that.
Yeah.
And expand on that. I was more discouraged.
Yeah.
From being that way, because showing emotion was like, in my culture or my home was like a sign of weakness.
Yep. Yeah, and it typically is that. Most places, that's like what we're programmed into, and it's like that's why it's so tough when we do feel, and we can't get taught anywhere on how to feel it.
Right, and then the hard part is too is as a kid, you don't have any guidance.
Yep.
Because you're in an environment that's not wired to support that necessarily. I think more parents are waking up now, more people are waking up, so kids are getting more compassion and patience and love around that stuff. But for us, I think it was a little more challenging, and I think it's so cool you found this place, which sounds like it was really instrumental in getting that reinforcement that, oh, I know the answer. Like, you have to get reinforced that message so many times, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to like reinforce that the guidance you're getting, you can trust, right? The intuitive guidance, like you can trust it. You know what you need to do. And it's like, when we're raised without the assistance, it's nice to have a place where we can learn to accept the assistance, And like you said about the parents kind of waking up too, I feel like it's like my generation, a lot of us came in with those open hearts, and we realized like all the old school ways of parenting weren't working. So a lot of them are giving that support to the kids now. So this next generation will have the guidance and support we didn't get.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also, though, a conscious decision to kind of break the programming. Yep. And I don't know. I found that there was a lot of resistance when I started to shift and change, And I don't know if you found that too, because in order for us to be the fullest expressions of ourselves, we had to be strong enough not to go back in that box anymore.
Yeah, yeah, and
And to
yeah,
say, this is who I am actually. So this
yeah,
is the road
break,
I'm taking.
breaking out of the boxes are tough sometimes, right? Because
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable outside of the box when you're actually just like
So,
being your sovereign self.
so
And
uncomfortable.
you're
Yeah.
like, oh, nobody else wants to do this. I guess I'll go back in the box. And
Right.
it's
Right.
like, because I've had people tell me, like, even just about like my hair, like, why don't you get a haircut like everybody has? You stand out who you are. I'm like, dude, of course I stand out. I want to stand out. Why would I want to conform to that whole thing? Like,
That herd mentality, right?
yeah, just like basic little snippet of it,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So when did you start to really listen and pay attention to yourself, your intuition, and start to follow that inner guidance? Because that does take some time, because there's so much doubt in the beginning, right?
yeah, I'd say like fully being on this path now, I'm almost coming up on like 4 years of like truly, really expressing my own self and like following that guidance. Cause it was like once I was able to break free of the addiction to numbing things,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of embrace the feelings and follow and flow with the guidance. So it's been about like 4 years now, and it's like been the most wild journey to have been on.
Amazing. It's amazing. And let's face it, feeling the feelings is so hard,
Yeah,
because when you're in them and they're dark and you're facing yourself, you are alone in that. It's
yeah,
you and you.
yeah,
So there's nowhere to turn, and there's nothing to comfort you, because to be on this journey, you have to walk through that fire. You
yeah.
have to sit in that fire. And how did you navigate that? How did you navigate those times? Because it's hard, it's brutal.
Yeah, I mean, at the very beginning, because I did the AA route, so I ended up having like a sponsor to help me dive deep and go through all of those internal feelings that I didn't want to deal with.
Right.
And it was like once I finally took that step and did that, it kind of just started flowing after, because I had learned at the counseling center on how to like embrace those feelings and work through them. And it was just all of a sudden it kind of
Clicked.
clicked. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I wasn't running away from them anymore. And I was able to just be with them and understand that on the other side, I'd be wiser and I would be more myself, and I would just know what to do next.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you agree that the more willing you are to go deep, the
Mm-hmm.
more your capacity to hold the pain grows? Like,
Yeah,
the more you're instead of running from it, the more you're going into it, even
yeah,
if you're uncomfortable and fearful, the greater your capacity to hold it becomes.
yeah, absolutely. It's all about the willingness, and that's what they teach you in like meetings. It's just like willingness is the key to the door. Like that's the key inside. So, because if you're not willing to do it, you're never gonna do it. You're gonna keep resisting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have to be ready too.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't be forced, you can't be forced to change. I think your spirit has to be, something inside of you has to be like, okay.
yeah. It has to come from within, and that's why you see so many times like when you're telling someone to do something and to change, it never happens, right? Like almost never until they are really ready.
Try parenting.
Yeah,
That's what it's
yeah,
like.
yeah. I get it. I mean, I don't get it with the full parenting, but I was the manager of a sober house, so it's like the same thing,
Yeah.
just with older men and just
Oh my God.
40-year-old kids that don't want to learn and listen. So
What was that experience like for you to be in charge of that at your age? Was it like herding cats?
yeah, I mean, it was because like got in there and it was just this time around in my recovery and like my spiritual path, you know, it was like, it was just different because I was ready,
Right.
you know, like every other time it didn't matter who was saying what, or like I was on the surface level looking like I was doing the work, but I wasn't really doing the work on the
Right.
inside, you know? So
Right.
when I got there this time, it was just like, things just flowed, things just clicked. So when they made me like the house manager, it was just like, I got like 18 guys in the house with me, and like
Oh my gosh.
between departments, and I'm like, they're all just coming for questions. And it's like, guys, you can come to me, and then you just end up repeating yourself. It was
Right.
like a good experience on like responsibility, but also a good experience to detach and witness and just know that their journeys are their journeys.
100%.
And
And
as much as I want to help, I'm only there to assist the ones that are ready.
right. That's such a huge revelation,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah,
I
like
think
you can't
as
force a message at someone that's not willing to hear it.
not at all, not at all. And I think we all can only come to that place by repeatedly having that experience where
Yeah,
we have information that we want to share that we know can be helpful. But then a very healthy part of our journey is knowing when to step back and allow people just to do what they need to do,
yeah. And that was like,
regardless
that
of
was one of
what
the
it
good
looks
things
like.
about, that was one of the good things about being the manager there, because it's like, it was constant. 18 guys that I could just like all at once. It was like being bombarded with that lesson to just step back and allow, you know, kind of like condensed it all into a short time for me.
That's such a big one, because
Yeah.
I think when you're sensitive, it's so easy to have misplaced compassion and really, really want to show up for people. But I've finally learned that you can't show up for people who aren't willing to show up for themselves and do the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
absolutely. And
can't
it
do
was,
it for them.
no, you can't do it for me. You know, like I can guide you there, but that's like, you got to do it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So
And
what a powerful lesson for you.
yeah, and also like looking back on it right now too, it's like it was also a big lesson on, I would say, following my intuition and just knowing what path was for me and what was gonna work, because they do things a certain way there, you know. And since I was
Mhm.
old, they didn't really like it. You know,
Right.
I wasn't doing things the way that worked for them. So it was hard for them to allow me to do the things that I knew were working for me, whether they were.
Right. And I think that's the hard part too, is like we've always heard, there are so many paths up the mountain,
Yep.
and everybody needs to follow their own path.
Yep.
For some reason, it seems like society really wants conformity.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are walking a path that works for them want everyone to come drink the Kool-Aid and
Yep.
follow that path. And that might work for some people, but it doesn't work for everyone, because we're all unique and we're all different. So we have to really get more tolerant, I think, in allowing every individual to find their way, because it's not a one size fits all
Oh, not at all.
journey at all. There are like a million ways to find your way forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, as many ways as there are people, right? We all have our own way.
100%, 100%. And so, um, what do you think the role of detachment has played for you in your personal journey? What has that allowed you to do? Or how has that helped you, being able to detach from just the outcomes of others and just really honor someone else's journey, even though on the outside it just looks like a disaster?
um, that's a good one, because it's the detachment piece, I would say, has just more so allowed me to remain in my own peace. You know, like as much as I love someone and I want the best for them, it's like the best for them is the path they're taking, no matter how I view it. You know, it may look like a disaster, but hopefully that pain will lead them to
Right,
the growth that they need.
right. And a lot of people have a really high threshold for pain.
Oh yeah,
So they
yeah,
keep
yeah.
repeating recreating these situations over and over. And you're like, wow, this
Yeah.
is almost painful to watch, but okay. You know?
Yeah, and I can look back on my own pain threshold through that journey, you know? It's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, if I don't want to learn, I'm hard-headed. I'm like, the pain threshold is very high.
The
But
pain
now,
threshold is high, and the ego is fighting tooth and nail for survival, because in order for us to become heart-centered and truly embrace the light beings that we are, we have to kind of tame our ego. So there's that
yeah,
ego piece that's just in the back of your mind fighting for its life, you know.
which is like a good, it's funny that you bring up the ego, because I bought a book at the beginning of my journey called The Sacred Ego. And then I never read it, you know? It was just one of those ones that like, I needed it, but it wasn't what I needed at the moment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
All about bringing, the ego isn't our enemy, you know?
Well, it
Because
is
once
a
you,
part of us.
yeah, but it's like once you deem your ego as the enemy, your internal world becomes a battleground. And it's just about like, your ego can evolve and learn too. It's just working on outdated info. So it's just about bringing that ego into the heart center and teaming up and just knowing that it's just looking for love and survival, you know?
Right, right. It's finding that balance, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That
absolutely.
balance inside, which is challenging. I think one of the hardest things for me was having the courage to walk alone.
Yeah,
Because when you're on this path, it is solitary, because
yeah,
it's you with you, right, doing your work. And then also, as we're evolving and changing, and as our vibe is rising and our consciousness is expanding, we start to show up in the world as different people. We start to
mhm,
walk through the world as different people. And so, a lot of times, friends and family that are used to us being a certain way or showing up in a certain way, they don't like that,
yeah,
because
yeah,
you're not showing up to support them from an unconscious place. You start to become different in how you respond and react to
yeah,
people. And so I found, you know, personally, that a lot of people have fallen out of my life and continue to, um,
yeah,
which is okay, because it's the natural order of things, but it's still hard. You know, have you found
yeah,
that at all?
yeah. I mean, on my path, like the connections I have to friends and like all of that, that's always been my biggest attachment in this world, you know, like that's the biggest struggle for me to let go and like allow them to fall away. But
Yes.
it's like when they fall away, I had the new people come in, you know, like it's like, why was I so afraid to lose them
Yeah.
when the people that are supposed to be in the next part of my journey
Right.
gravitate towards
You have
find
to
them?
create space, right? So we have to just kind of allow the organic shedding and
Mhm.
unfolding. And what I've tried to do is just not attach too much, I guess, I try not to attach too much to it. Like, people could overthink it and feel bad about it or whatever. And I'm just like, I honor you for being part of my life for this part of my journey. And now it's time for us to part ways, you know, and send them off with love. Even though they might not feel loving, they might be pissed off or annoyed by something I said or whatever. But it's like, it's okay, because once we can kind of allow that to organically shed and fall away, that creates room for that next, like you said, person who's more resonant with us to
Yeah,
step in and enrich our lives, right?
yeah, absolutely. And it's like I love the term you used recently, that vibrational isolation, you know, because it's assimilating it, we end up in solitude. So we can allow the next one to come in, but we have to be able to sit in our own space to
Right.
allow it to happen.
Right. And that's kind of hard for people who are used to being social and holding people close.
Yeah,
We're not really conditioned or shown that it's healthy sometimes to let people go.
yeah,
Even if they're family members, I think there's this misunderstanding that because you're a blood relative, you need to hold this relationship. And I feel very strongly, if it's toxic, there's no place for that in my life.
yeah,
I don't care
absolutely.
who you are. I don't care how
Yeah,
close we are related. If you can't
yeah,
meet me where I am with an open heart, and you want to show up in a toxic way or in a lower vibration, I will not allow that, because I respect myself too much, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's that when we respect ourselves too much, that's definitely what's tough for other people, you know, because it's like, obviously, if they can't respect our boundaries, they're not respecting their own.
They're the ones that are most offended
Yeah,
when we show up in integrity and sovereignty. They're like, how dare you?
yeah. And I found too that it's like the more accepting I become of other people and their paths, the more intolerant they are that my path isn't their path.
Yes,
And it's
100%. That is so true.
yeah, and it's like you're preaching tolerance, but I say your truth is good for you, but that's your truth. And then
Right.
they get mad. I'm like,
I've had that too, especially, you know, especially among the more um, religious
mm-hmm,
family members.
yeah,
They pray for me a lot.
yeah. I know. I worked where I worked recently. That's what they did all the time, and like they'd say they'd pray for me. They didn't
Yeah.
believe in what I was doing, and I'm like, dude, but your path is fine. You found what makes you a better person.
Right.
I'm happy for you.
Yes.
Why are you mad that my way is different?
I have had that same exact experience on multiple people and multiple over the years, you know, and I couldn't understand it. I'm like, I'm saying, go, you do you, you know, go follow your path and let me do me. So how come it doesn't go both ways, you know? But again, I think there's this need for people to want validation and want everyone to come into their lane.
I feel like it's that conformity piece again. You know, it's like,
Yes.
you know, like there's a few paths. Let's all stay on them together.
Yes. I think we can. I was telling my husband, because, you know, he's not necessarily consciously on the same path that I'm on,
Yeah,
although he's married to me, so he is, because we're in
yeah,
training together energetically. But I said, honey, you know, we can have different opinions about things, and think about it like we're on a track, like a high school track.
mm-hmm.
And I said, we can walk next to each other and hold hands, but we can be in our own lanes.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
No, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a good little analogy and visual on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So
as much as we're on the path together, we're on our own. It's
we're
still separate.
in our own lane. And one
Yeah,
thing I've really been, you know, since probably late last year, I like you have been in a real space of reflection,
yeah,
and detachment,
yep.
like really consciously detaching from just everything, like labels that I identified with, like healer or whatever, wife, mother, whatever label. Like I've just really worked a lot on separating from labels, because I just am. I just
Mm-hmm,
am
yeah.
who I am. And I didn't want to be limited or defined by labels. So, what has been the toughest part about kind of that part of your journey? Just kind of really letting go of everything that defined you.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the last few months have been a little bit more intense on that exact aspect because
Yeah.
it's like releasing all my final attachments to like the identity I've had here, you know, like quitting my job and actually being in a position where there's no distraction, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm going to work, you have a chance to distract yourself throughout the day and kind of play that paradigm. And now I've really been like having to dig deep and like realize like none of that is who I am. And
That's a huge realization.
yeah, but to let go, you know, we still want to hold on as humans, and it's like
Well, there's some
that.
comfort there, right? There's
Yep,
comfort there. There's, you know, friendship, income. There's comfort, even if it's not aligned, right?
it's the familiarity of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like even if it's a discomforting familiarity, we don't want to change it because we're afraid of the unknown sometimes, you know.
A
So it's
hundred
like
percent.
I'd rather be in a discomforting familiarity than in who knows what. So
that's probably why a lot of people stay in unhappy marriages.
yeah,
They're like, there's
or
comfort in the discomfort.
yeah, or the unhappy jobs or
Whatever.
and it's like on this path is why like I've learned, and a lot of people say it, it's not my phrase, it's like you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable in the change, you know?
Yes. And it takes courage.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
honor you for saying, you know, that's not aligned for me, and I'm going to walk away from it. It's one thing to know inside that it's not aligned, but then when you take aligned action, that's very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the true power in it, because yeah, we can know all we want, you know, but self-knowledge avails us nothing, they say. And it's like I can know internally everything, but if you're not acting or doing anything, you don't know it, you know.
It's
You
not
have
serving you. You're not embodying the message. I was thinking about this last year. I think I put a post up about it. It's kind of like you can memorize all of these inspirational phrases or Bible verses or whatever it is and feel like you're an expert on something.
yeah.
But until you're embodying and living it, I really don't want to hear from you, you know?
Yeah. And
Like,
that's like a big thing. Like when you go through the recovery route, most people, you know, they can learn what they need to say to get a lot of people off of their backs. Like you can pick up on all the phrases, you know, all the terminology to use, but it's like when someone is actually doing the work, it feels different.
it is different.
You know, it's just, yeah, it is different. And it's like the being they are when they're playing the game is different than the being they are when they're actually doing the work, you know? And it's like,
Yeah, for sure. What I found too is the more I did the work and the deeper I went and the more I connected to myself, the more I could read the false front that other people would be
yeah,
present. It's like the more we connect to ourselves and the more energetically whole and complete we become, our ability to really read the energy of the people around us kind of gets really more on point, right?
yeah,
It sharpens our ability. It hones our ability and intuition around. We just have a higher bullshit meter, I think, is what happens.
yeah. Well, I'd say maybe a lower one because we can read it easier, you know? It's like,
Right.
We're not going to let you get away with it as long anymore. It's like, nah, just cut that out.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny too when people are, you know, trying to be nice, but I can read and feel the energy of like jealousy or what anger or whatever is behind that. And people don't understand that, you know, I can read you. I can read you like a book right now. Stop
like
that.
your words are trying to be pleasant, but I can totally feel the subconsciousness behind it, you know?
Exactly. It's the world would be such a beautiful place if we could all just learn to love ourselves and embrace ourselves. And I think the more you can do that, the less or the more tolerant we become and accepting of everybody being on their journey. So maybe the lack of acceptance of people in our lives just shows us a reflection of where they are vibrationally.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? Like I remember there was a point recently where I was just out to breakfast and someone I know like came up and instantly just started complaining about things in their life. And I just was like, what are you doing? Like, why do I want to hear that? Like, but you'll let me do it. I'm like, no, I won't.
I don't think so.
You didn't ask if I'm in the place to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Did you set a boundary?
Yeah, I was just like, can you just like, you need to stop or leave? And they were like, it totally threw them off because most people accept the complaining.
Right.
Or because if you're miserable, misery loves company, they say.
Right.
So like, people love to find people to complain.
I love that you set that boundary. And then did the person leave?
Yeah, they stayed for a couple more minutes and were just like upset that they couldn't keep complaining.
Right.
So and it was like, but I was like, I had to kind of let them understand, like, you can't just come into people's space and start spewing that, you know?
Right. That was a good lesson for that person.
Yeah.
Boundaries are a good lesson, even if the person on the receiving end of the boundaries is upset by them.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
people need to know that they don't have a right to go throw up on everybody because they're having a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, they feel better, and then you're covered with their crap,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
And it's like, I may be able to deal with it because I'm a little more conscious, but I'm like, I don't want to deal with it. So you keep
right.
that.
Yeah. Kyle, I know yoga's been a big part of your journey. Tell me a little bit about that. How did you find yoga, and what has it done for you, physically, spiritually,
Yeah.
emotionally?
As the yoga became like at the beginning of my sobriety journey, my recovery journey, like I was in and out of the studio. But I'm friends with the owner of the studio by my house, and it was just like, you go through ebb and flows of how much you get there, but to just
Mhm.
be able to go for the period of time that I was going last year alone was like the biggest one, because it was like I haven't been so consecutive in so long. And to just be there and to be able to connect with my body, what it's telling me while I'm there, and just pretty much be in a guided meditative state of connection for the whole hour and a half I'm there is like, it was a truly, it really helped me learn to flow last year,
Yeah.
kind of like flow with what's going on, be in my own energy and space while I'm there, and just like be able to take that out, like true self-care. So
100%. Not only physically, but there's something about consistently connecting to your body. We consistently connect to our minds. We consistently connect to our thoughts. In meditation, we connect to our soul.
yeah.
We don't always connect physically to our body. So yoga is such
Yeah,
a
and
beautiful tool.
because like when I like just reading into like not just the actual physical yoga, because that's just one piece of yoga. Yoga is all about mind, body, soul
It is a
connection.
lifestyle. It is a culture. It is a way of being.
Yeah, it
Which
is a way of being and living, and it's like my buddy always used to tell me, like, you got to have your head, heart, and feet all in the same place. And like when you go do yoga practices, you are it's easily accessible to be in that state, to just connect and be right where you are.
Yeah, I found it to be a very powerful tool for me. I've kind of
Yeah.
fallen away from it, and I've been getting the nudge to go back. I
Yeah.
need to get back in it. I think the pandemic, um, I like being in the studio. I don't enjoy it as much at home on Zoom.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
didn't do stuff. I was lucky enough. My studio kind of stayed open, and
Oh,
they were
that's great.
open enough.
Yeah,
So it was like at the beginning of the pandemic and the lockdown, it really helped me through that.
that's huge.
Um, but I've been kind of guided to stay away from the studio lately, so I haven't really been able to go into that practice.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still just like you got to accept that and flow with
Yeah.
this journey, right?
Yeah, I
So,
think so much of it is really following our inner compass, and we all have one. You know,
yeah,
it's just a matter of kind of peeling back the layers and peeling back the noise, and creating space to actually feel where
yeah,
you're being guided to go. I think there's, like you said, there's just so many distractions, and the pandemic last year and lockdown kind of forced people to really feel things
yeah,
because they're at home with their feelings. You can't run to the mall. You can't go to have, there were a lot of distractions just taken off the table completely.
yeah,
So, what was
yeah.
it like for you kind of going through that pandemic time?
I mean, for me, luckily my job was, I guess you could say, essential, but I don't really like the term, but I was able to work right through it all. So
Mm-hmm.
I was able to work right through it all. And with my yoga studio being open, I was able to pretty
So
much, my life
it was pretty
didn't
consistent. It wasn't, there
really
were,
change at all. Like some
yeah.
of my breakfast joints closed and like certain things happened. But other than that, I was able to pretty much maintain my life. So it was like really, really awesome to do that.
That is huge.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think has been one of the biggest revelations about yourself that you've discovered walking this journey?
Um, I'd probably just, that's a tough one. You know, I look into it every once in a while, but I'd probably have to say it's just like that I am love. Like it sounds cliche sometimes, but it's just like I am here to love. I am here to love who's around me. And that's just like the only way forward is to love. So
Oh, it does heal everything too.
yeah, and like because when you're loving, you're in that space of joy, that authenticity, and it's just like you're able to truly embrace life, you know, versus like resisting it because you're afraid of everything. So
Yeah, conquering the fear is so huge, right?
yeah,
For any kind of expansion in our consciousness. It's
yeah,
unwinding and just kind of letting go of, gosh, generations and generations of fear programming and also lifetimes and lifetimes for our souls uh, programming in our DNA. Having that kind of unwind and release through the work has been super powerful too. Because
yeah,
people feel, I think, that we're just having a human life in this human experience, not really understanding that the soul is eternal and your soul has traveled through
yeah,
many, many, many lifetimes, many experiences, and carried
yeah,
with it
yeah,
many things, some of them that don't benefit you necessarily, that we need to let go of, right?
yeah, absolutely. And it's like I'd say another one too is like no matter what's happening, it's like I am in control of my thoughts and emotions. You know, like that is one of the biggest ones because a buddy of mine used to always say, like, when they come, don't marinate in them and allow them to become you, you know, like, because they aren't us. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Those
it's
are
just,
such wise words.
yeah,
Yes, because your thoughts are thoughts. They don't
yeah,
hold power until you attach emotion to them.
yeah. And
They
it's just like, we have, we can make the choice to change them, you know, like they come, we don't have to sit with them for too long, you know, just embrace them and allow them to leave when it's time.
Yeah, take the lesson or whatever is being triggered there and then let it go, right? Or not even hold on to it. Just let it
Yeah,
flow like a fast flowing stream. You just let that thought keep flowing through. We don't have to, like you said, attach to every single thought. That's a choice, right?
because there's some times when a thought will enter and I go, where'd that come from? And I know it's like, I don't need that. Bye-bye. You know,
Let that
let it
one go. Let that one go.
yeah,
Exactly. I always think of it like I'm standing at a riverbank and it's just the water's flowing, and I'm like, don't need that one. Just
yeah,
let that. I just throw them in and just let them wash out. You know that.
yeah,
Imagine how much mental energy and space you create by not going down every thought rabbit hole that enters your mind and not believing every thought that enters your mind, because honestly, we're so good at uh, as humans, negative
yeah,
self-thought and reinforcement instead of positive
yeah,
uh, thought and reinforcement, which, if we could flip that switch, it's a life changer.
yeah. Because like, I just had like, I could just see like instead of going down the rabbit hole of those thoughts, it's like climbing the mountain of those thoughts instead, you know, like just you can choose to go with the thoughts that are going to get you to the top of the mountain.
I think too we should talk about alignment, because that's such a huge part of this journey is alignment. So what has alignment meant for you, and how have you navigated your ascension journey through alignment?
Through alignment. So for me, it's just like honestly, like every morning when I wake up and I kind of ground myself and I make sure that I am in this body to kind of discern what my alignment is for the day is been my biggest thing, because it's like vibration and alignment changes moment to moment, you know, so we really have to be conscious and aware of what we're feeling in each and every moment as it arises
Mm-hmm.
to make like to make my highest choice in that, because the only alignment I want is what's going to be the best for my evolution, right?
Right.
So we can choose to align another way, but it's like it all comes down to choice again. You know, where do we choose to align and how do we choose to show up?
Well, I think it's important for people to know that when you make choices, you're saying to the universe, I'm aligning through this choice with this timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So every choice you're making is moving you closer in thought, action, and alignment with an outcome and
Yep.
timeline. So I choose every day to align with what is supporting me
Mm-hmm.
and moving me forward with the highest possible timeline and outcome, right? Like you're saying.
Yeah, because there's been a few situations that arose recently where I'm like, my human and my ego might not like it, you know, but I'm like, is this gonna be the highest outcome of it? And it's like, yes. So it's like, okay, you know, I can't fight it. I have to flow. It's like, I know that that is correct and that's the way I want to align. So
Mhm.
why fight that, you
And it
know?
might not always make sense either.
Yeah, it usually makes sense later.
It makes sense later, like, wow, I'm glad I didn't go on that snowboarding trip with this person, or I'm glad I didn't take that job, even though it seemed like the right job, but something inside of me was like, don't do it, man.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
alignment, that's so important that we honor the path that we're on and where we want to go, and we take aligned action that's
Yeah,
going to move us forward on that timeline and path. Because every time we don't, that's a detour
yeah.
that
And it's like
delays
all
us.
the, we can take the detours we if we want to, but why put ourselves through the detours, you know? Like,
Ultimately, I think you get where you want to go, but it's going to take a lot longer when you could just take a linear path from A to
yeah,
B by staying aligned, in your choices. And that's even as simple as for people. I know when I was younger, I'd get invited to go out to events,
yeah,
and I was very social. So I would always say yes. But there's a lot of times when you're like, I don't really want to be around these people, but you
yeah,
feel obligated, or you said yes and now you don't want to come up with an excuse to say no, so you go. Well,
yeah,
if you're participating in anything that doesn't feel good to you, even if it's a family reunion or
yeah,
anything, that's not aligned. Anytime you have to make an excuse to tell me why you're doing something, why you're going to something you don't want to go, or why you're staying in a relationship you don't want to be in, that's not aligned for you.
yeah, absolutely. It's like, yeah, if there's any hesitation on this is for me, then it's probably not for you.
Yeah, like I just really find that so many times people come up with all these excuses as to why. Well,
Yeah,
then that's not aligned, because when you're aligned, there is no excuse necessary, because
yeah,
vibrationally, energetically, this is your path. There's no reason to make an excuse for it.
yeah. And there's no words to explain it either, you know? It's just
Right.
kind of like,
It's a feeling.
I don't know why it's just like when you're in that space of like there's no words you just know this is where you're supposed to be, but if there's words like you're saying to come up with an excuse, it feels like that's kind of like out of alignment, you know?
Right. I mean, that's just my perspective, of course,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
found
no,
that,
no, that makes a lot of sense though. And it's just like, yeah, it's the feeling, you know, there's no
yeah,
word to describe when you're in alignment, you know, it's just
yeah.
pure understanding and knowing.
And I find that I'm saying less.
Yep.
Like my energy speaks for me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My energy, my integrity, my truth speaks for me. I don't need to speak all these words. It's like you're going to
Yeah,
feel.
you don't, yeah, you don't need to explain it to anybody because it's like you can try, they won't understand because it's like my
Exactly.
it's in alignment and I know it is. So there's no reason. I don't need you to understand why.
Right. It's just a no.
Yeah, yeah. Just know, and it's just a knowing for what's going on,
Right.
you know what I mean? So
Right. And then I think the more aligned action that we take, or the more aligned that we become, that really propels us and increases our, um, I don't know, our consciousness grows, because
yep,
we get so focused and laser focused on what is in resonance for us, that all that density it just drops away, and then that makes us lighter and allows us to go higher, always
Yeah.
higher. And
Yeah.
with that comes so much expansion and awareness.
Yeah, because I don't know if it's like similar for you, but it's like every time that I fully come back into alignment and like release all that other stuff, like that shift, that lightness as you get to that next level, and you're like, yes, it's just like
Yes.
such an incredible shift when you get to that
You
point.
feel it. You actually feel it
Yeah.
physically, energetically, emotionally. You feel it. Sometimes it catches me by surprise. I'm like, whoa, how did I get here?
Where am I right now? It feels like I
That's a
just
question I
floated.
ask all the time. No idea where I am, but I know I am where I need to be.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, man, I've had such a great time. This hour like flew by. It went so fast,
No,
Kyle.
yeah.
Thank you for
I know.
being here.
Thanks.
Do you have any words of wisdom for anybody who might be kind of struggling right now, or maybe wants to make a change, but they don't really have the courage to do it?
I mean, it's funny that like when you ask that question, the only thing that comes to me is what a friend of mine told me. Like when I asked her for some last little bit of wisdom while I had her in my life. And it's just like, I feel that way on the path I'm on now. And it's just like, find a good mooring and set sail, she told me. And it's just like, when you find your path, just let the winds take you.
That's awesome.
And
That's
yeah,
gold right there.
that's the only thing that came to mind as you said that.
That is so perfect. So for my audience, remember what Kyle said, find a good mooring and set sail. Just go where your heart leads you. I want to thank you all for being with us today. It's been an honor to share all of this spiritual wisdom with my buddy Kyle. And to all of you, we'll see you next time. Be kind to yourselves. I love you all. Take care. Bye.
Like a bird